I'm Oskoz from the Modern Languages, Linguistics and Intercultural Communication Department. I have been using digital stories in the elementary courses for Spanish and also advanced Spanish courses. I have used them very differently, even though the goal to some extent is the same one. For the elementary courses, which would be the first course for Spanish, I use it to practice the language, to use the vocabulary and structures that we were learning in the class. For the upper level course, which is an advanced Spanish writing course, we've been using it to talk about an intercultural experience, an intercultural moment that somehow shaped or affected the student's life, and also to develop their language skills. So the first time I used the digital story in my lower level class was focusing on culture. So the students were discussing different cultural topics and they were producing the digital story in English. But there was, even though it's good for the Spanish class to talk about cultural topics, we were not using the language per se. The following semester, I started to include the language by asking the students to combine the digital story with a writing assignment, and I broke it down in different tasks, which made it easier for the students to work on that project. Later on, I also observed other digital stories that other participants were working on, and I start to look at the value of implicit and explicit images, and I start to look at how the music and the narrative were coming together to create meaning. And I realized I could do much more thanks to the workshop and what I was seeing from the workshops. I thought I could do much more in my classes, and I start to integrate that those components of let's analyze the images, let's analyze the sound, let's analyze the text to see how we can create meaning in the classroom. It definitely does create a community in the classroom. When I use it for the lower level course, I ask the students to team up in groups of 3. So definitely they were interacting and they had a lot of discussions when they were talking about topics such as immigration or the DREAM Act. They really had deep discussions on those topics. And when they showed their product to the rest of the class, and even when they were working on the different projects, we came here to the language lab and we were working on the digital stories, they were interacting and they were asking questions to each other and they were commenting on what they were doing. With the upper level courses, it is an individual project. Each person does something different. But still, when we show the final product, or even when we are working here at the Language Lab in the product, they really interact with each other. They talk about what their story is about. They talk about how to make it better. They really help each other. We also get in circles in which the students are reading out loud the story, and the students are giving feedback to each other on how to improve the story, on the meaning of the story, on how to use images to enhance the story, on what type of music they could use. And that really helps to create a community. Students like to receive the feedback. It helps them that they are being listened by others, and they also like to comment on others because they feel they are part of the other people's story. I always ask the students to write a self-reflection after they have completed the story. And what I do is, along the semester, when they are working on the story, I ask them questions. First of all, we analyze different digital stories along the semester. And we look not only from the particular class I am teaching, but also from other courses, from community-based projects. And we examine the use of the text, the use of the narrative, the use of the image, how they are implicit, explicit, how the sound is helping, how the music is helping to create that message. Even though as a language instructor, I would feel that the text is one of the foundations, and I think it's one of the foundations, and we should have a good narrative with the different components. When we are creating the digital story, the text is not only supported, but is complemented by the different elements. We need to understand that when we are talking about communication today, it's not only about oral communication or written communication, but that we are going beyond that, and we need to give those resources to our students.